The transport ship landed softly on the gray metal platform. Danny Carter looked out the window at his new home for the next year. The planet 7 had 2 suns in the sky, and the buildings were taller than anything he had ever seen on Earth. He was 17 years old, and he was about to become one of the first humans to study at the famous academy. Danny picked up his small bag and walked down the ramp. The air smelled different here. It was clean but strange, like nothing he had ever breathed before. Around him, aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the spaceport. Some were tall and thin. Others were short and wide. A few floated above the ground. Danny tried not to stare, but it was hard. He had grown up watching videos about alien species, but seeing them in person was something else entirely. A small robot floated up to him. It spoke in a mechanical voice. "Danny Carter, human, exchange student, please follow me to the Academy transport." Danny followed the robot through the crowded spaceport. Many aliens stopped to look at him. Some pointed. Others made sounds that might have been laughter. He heard whispers in languages his translator chip could not fully understand, but he caught a few words: weak, small, fragile, human. He kept his face calm and kept walking. The Academy transport was a sleek vehicle that flew above the ground. Danny sat alone in the back while other new students sat together in groups. They did not invite him to join them. A large creature with 4 arms and scales like black glass looked at him and then turned away with a snort. Danny did not react. He just looked out the window at the strange alien city below. The academy was built on top of a mountain. Its walls were made of white stone that seemed to glow in the light of the 2 suns. Flags from dozens of different worlds flew above the main gate. Danny noticed that there was no flag from Earth. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Coalition 5 years ago. They were still new, still unknown, still unwelcome in many places. Danny walked through the main gate with the other students. A tall alien with gray skin and 6 eyes stood at the entrance. He held a data tablet and checked names as students passed. "Name and species," the alien said in a bored voice. "Danny Carter, human." The alien looked up from his tablet. All 6 of his eyes focused on Danny at once. "Human. There must be a mistake." "No mistake," Danny said. "I was accepted 3 months ago. You can check the records." The alien checked his tablet. His gray face showed surprise, then confusion, then something that looked like amusement. "Very well, human. Proceed to Combat Training Hall 7. Your instructor is Ev." The alien shook his head as Danny walked past. "Good luck, little human. You will need it." Combat Training Hall 7 was a massive room with high ceilings and smooth floors. Strange weapons hung on the walls. Training equipment that Danny did not recognize filled the corners. About 40 students stood in rows, waiting for class to begin. Danny walked in and found an empty spot at the back. Every head turned to look at him. The students were from many different species. Danny recognized a few from his studies. There were massive creatures with stone-gray skin and tusks like a wild boar. Their species was known as the greatest warriors in the galaxy. There were tall beings with 4 arms and scales that could stop a blade. There were fast predators with claws that could cut through metal, and there were many others that Danny did not know. All of them were looking at him like he was a joke. The door at the front of the room opened. Instructor Eth walked in. He was 8 feet tall, with 4 powerful arms and scales as black as space itself. His eyes were yellow and sharp. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. Eth looked at his tablet and then looked at the class. His eyes found Danny immediately. "What is this?" Eth said. His voice was deep and rough like stones grinding together. "I am Danny Carter," Danny said. "Human exchange student." Eth stared at him for a long moment. Then he started to laugh. It was a harsh, rumbling sound that echoed off the walls. The other students joined in. The room filled with clicking, hissing, growling laughter. "A human," Eth said when he finally stopped laughing. "They sent us a human to train in combat." He walked closer to Danny, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. Your species has been in space for what? 60 years, 70. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no venom, no claws. Your bones break easily. Your skin tears like paper. What could you possibly hope to learn here? Danny looked up at the massive instructor. His face showed no fear. I hope to learn whatever you are willing to teach me, instructor. This answer seemed to amuse Eth even more. Willing to teach you. I'm not sure there is anything I can teach a creature so poorly designed for combat. He turned to the class. Let this be a lesson. The humans think they belong among the stars. They think they can stand beside species that have been fighting wars since before humans learned to walk upright. This is what happens when a young species becomes too confident. A massive student stepped forward. He was even bigger than Eth, with arms as thick as tree trunks and tusks that curved up from his lower jaw. Perhaps the human is lost, he said. His name was Or, and his deep voice dripped with contempt. Maybe he was looking for the cooking class or the cleaning service. The room exploded with laughter again. Danny did not react. He did not get angry. He did not defend himself. He simply stood there with his hands at his sides, his breathing slow and steady. When the laughter finally died down, he bowed his head slightly toward Instructor Eth. Where should I stand for training, Instructor? Eth's yellow eyes narrowed. For just a moment, something flickered across his face. It might have been curiosity. It might have been respect. But it disappeared quickly, replaced by his usual look of superiority. Stand in the back, human. Try not to get in the way, and try not to get killed. Danny walked to the back of the room and took his position. The other students turned away from him, already forgetting he existed. To them, he was nothing. A small, weak, fragile human who did not belong. But Danny Carter knew something they did not. He had been underestimated his entire life. And every single person who had ever underestimated him had learned to regret it. He settled into a relaxed stance and waited for training to begin. There was no rush. He had time. And patience, as his grandfather had taught him long ago, was the greatest weapon of all. 3 weeks passed at the academy. For Danny Carter, each day brought new challenges. Not the kind of challenges he had expected. Not difficult training or hard lessons. No, his challenges came from the constant mockery of everyone around him. In combat class, Instructor Eth would demonstrate techniques using Danny as the example of what not to do. The instructor would grab Danny's arm and hold it up for the class to see. Notice how thin and weak the human limb is, he would say. One twist and it would snap like a dry branch. The class would laugh, and Danny would simply nod and return to his place. During sparring sessions, no one would partner with him. The other students acted like he did not exist. They would pair up quickly, leaving Danny standing alone on the training floor. When Instructor Eth forced someone to spar with him, they would either refuse to fight seriously or they would hit him harder than necessary. Danny never complained. He took every blow and got back up every time he fell. The student named or was the worst. He seemed to enjoy making Danny's life miserable. He would trip Danny in the hallways. He would knock Danny's food tray out of his hands in the eating hall. He would laugh loudly whenever Danny made any small mistake in class. Look at the human, or would say to his friends. He moves like a sick old creature. My little sister could beat him in a fight and she is only 4 years old. Danny never responded to these insults. He never showed anger or frustration. He just continued with his day as if nothing had happened. This seemed to make Or even angrier. The wanted a reaction. He wanted Danny to fight back so he could crush him, but Danny gave him nothing. At night, Danny would return to his small room in the student housing. He would sit alone and think about his grandfather. Samuel Carter had been a quiet man with kind eyes and strong hands. He had trained soldiers for the Earth military for 40 years. He had learned martial arts from masters around the world, and he had taught Danny everything he knew. The loudest fighter is usually the weakest, his grandfather had told him once. A true warrior does not need to show his strength. He does not need to boast or threaten. He simply waits for the right moment. And when that moment comes, he strikes like lightning. Danny missed his grandfather. The old man had died 2 years ago, just before humanity made first contact with the Galactic Coalition. He never got to see the stars. He never got to know that his grandson would travel to distant planets. But his teachings lived on in Danny's heart and in Danny's muscles and in Danny's bones. One evening, Danny was sitting alone in the Academy's meditation garden. It was a quiet place filled with strange alien plants that glowed softly in the darkness. He came here often to escape the noise and the cruelty of the other students. He heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned to see a young female alien approaching. She had blue skin that shimmered like water in moonlight. Her eyes were large and silver. Her movements were graceful and careful like a dancer. Danny recognized her species. Her people were known as diplomats and scholars, not fighters. "May I sit with you?" she asked. Her voice was soft and musical. Danny nodded, "Of course." She sat down on the bench beside him. "My name is Myra." "Danny." "I know who you are," Myra said. "Everyone knows who you are, the human, the outsider." She paused. "I know what it feels like to be mocked. My species is not respected here either. They say are too soft for combat, too gentle, too weak." Danny looked at her. "Why did you come to this academy then?" "To prove them wrong," Myra said simply. "Why did you come?" Danny thought about the question for a moment. "My grandfather believed that the best way to understand someone is to learn how they fight. He said that combat reveals the truth about a person, their fears, their strengths, their character." He looked up at the alien stars above them. "I came here to understand the galaxy, to learn about the species we will share the universe with." Myra tilted her head. "That is a noble reason, but it does not explain why you stay. They treat you terribly. They humiliate you every day. Why do you not leave?" Danny smiled slightly. "My grandfather taught me something else. He said the deadliest fighters never look dangerous. They let their enemies underestimate them. They watch and learn and wait. And when the time is right, they show what they are truly capable of." Myra's silver eyes widened. "You have been hiding your abilities." Danny did not answer the question. He just kept smiling. The next morning, an announcement was posted throughout the academy. The annual ranking ceremony was approaching in 2 weeks. This was a sacred tradition at the academy. Students could challenge for higher belt ranks by defeating opponents in single combat. The highest rank was the black belt. Only a few students in the entire academy held this honor. Or announced loudly in the eating hall that he would challenge for his black belt. He stood on a table and beat his massive chest with his fists. "I will prove that are the greatest warriors in the galaxy," he roared. "No one can stand against me. I will crush any opponent foolish enough to face me." The students cheered and stomped their feet, or had been training for 12 years. His species could break starship metal with their bare hands. No one doubted that he would succeed. Then something unexpected happened. The registration list was posted that afternoon. Students gathered around to see who had signed up for which challenges. Most of the names were expected. Mid-level students challenging for blue belts, advanced students challenging for red belts, or his name at the top challenging for black belt. But there was another name listed for the black belt challenge. Danny Carter, human. The crowd fell silent. Then someone started laughing. Then everyone was laughing. The news spread through the academy like fire. The human had registered for the black belt trial. The weak, pathetic human thought he could earn the highest honor in the academy. Or found Danny in the hallway. They grabbed Danny by the front of his shirt and lifted him off the ground with one hand. "You dare to mock our sacred tradition," he growled. "You will die in that arena, human. I will crush every bone in your body." Danny looked at him calmly. "Then I guess I will see you in 2 weeks." Or threw Danny against the wall and walked away, laughing. Danny stood up slowly and brushed off his clothes. His face showed no pain. His eyes showed no fear. In 2 weeks, everything would change. In 2 weeks, the galaxy would learn what a human could do. Danny smiled and walked back to his room to train. The news of Danny's black belt challenge spread beyond the academy walls. Within days, the entire planet was talking about it. A human had registered for the highest combat honor at the most famous martial arts school in the galaxy. Some thought it was a joke. Others thought the human had lost his mind. A few thought it was an insult to the ancient traditions of the academy. Instructor Eth called Danny to his office. The room was filled with weapons from dozens of worlds. Trophies and medals covered the walls. He sat behind a large desk, his 4 arms folded across his chest. "Sit down, human," Eth said. Danny sat in the chair across from the instructor. It was sized for aliens much larger than him, so his feet barely touched the floor. "I have watched you for 3 weeks," Eth said. "You have shown no skill, no talent, no ability. In every training session you have performed at the lowest level. You cannot beat any student in this academy." He leaned forward. "So why have you registered for the black belt trial?" Danny met the instructor's yellow eyes. "Because I believe I can earn it." Eth made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The black belt trial requires you to defeat a certified black belt holder in single combat. Do you understand what that means? You will face, his species has natural armor under their skin. Their bones are 3 times denser than steel. They can lift objects 100 times their own weight, and has trained in combat since he was a small child." "I understand," Danny said. "He will kill you," Eth said. His voice was almost gentle now, almost concerned. "I am not saying this to be cruel. I am saying this because it is the truth. The moment that match begins will charge at you. One blow from his fist will shatter your skull. Your human body cannot survive what he will do to you." Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he asked a simple question. "Do humans have the right to compete in the trial?" Eth frowned. "Yes, every species in the coalition has that right, but rights and wisdom are not the same thing. Just because you can do something does not mean you should." "Then I will compete," Danny said. "If I fail, I fail, but I will not withdraw." The instructor stared at him for a long time. Something changed in his yellow eyes. The mockery was gone. In its place was something else. Maybe confusion, maybe curiosity, maybe the smallest hint of respect. "Very well," Eth said. "It is your life to throw away. I only hope your death teaches other humans to know their place in this galaxy." Danny stood and bowed. "Thank you for your concern, instructor." Then he walked out of the office. The betting pools started the next day. Students and teachers and even people from other planets placed bets on the outcome of the match. The odds against Danny were 10,000 to 1. Some betting houses refused to take bets on Danny winning because they thought it was impossible. They would lose too much money if some miracle happened. But no one believed in miracles, not when it came to humans. The night before the ceremony, Danny could not sleep. He got dressed and walked to the training hall. The building was empty and dark. Only the soft glow of emergency lights lit the room. He stood in the center of the floor and began to move. He had not shown anyone his true abilities since arriving at the academy. Every day in class, he had moved slowly and clumsily on purpose. He had let the other students throw him around. He had pretended to be weak and unskilled. But now, alone in the darkness, he let himself be free. His body flowed through forms that had been taught to humans for thousands of years. His arms and legs moved with perfect precision. Each step was exactly right. Each strike cut through the air with deadly speed. He moved like water, like wind, like shadow. He was silence and motion combined into something beautiful and terrifying. He did not hear Myra enter the training hall. He did not know she was watching until he finished his practice and turned around. She stood near the door, her silver eyes wide with shock. Her blue skin had turned pale. "That was not the same person I have seen in class," she whispered. You move like nothing I have ever seen. You have been hiding. All this time you have been hiding." Danny walked over to her. His breathing was calm and steady despite the intense workout. "Yes." "Why?" Myra asked. "Why let them humiliate you? Why let them think you are weak?" "Because I needed to watch them," Danny said. "I needed to learn how they fight. Every species here depends on their natural gifts. Use their strength, use their speed, use their extra arms. They have never fought anything different. They have never faced an enemy who does not fight the same way. And humans are different." Danny sat down on a training bench. Myra sat beside him. He looked at his hands, small and soft compared to the clawed fists of the aliens here. On Earth, humans were never the strongest. We were never the fastest. We had no natural weapons. Everything on our planet could kill us. Big animals, small insects, disease, weather, other humans. He closed his hands into fists. So we had to become something else. We had to learn to use our enemy's strength against them. We developed fighting techniques over thousands of years. We learned exactly where to strike to cause the most damage. We learned how to win fights against opponents much bigger and stronger than us. "But Or is not just bigger," Myra said. "He is different. His body is made for war." Danny nodded. "Yes, but humans have studied every species in the coalition since first contact. Our doctors and scientists have mapped the bodies of every alien race. We know where the nerves are. We know where the weak points are. We know how to hurt them." He looked at Myra. "My grandfather taught me that every creature has weaknesses. Size and strength do not matter if you cannot touch your enemy. Speed does not matter if you do not know where to strike." Myra was quiet for a long moment. "Can you really defeat him?" Danny smiled. "Tomorrow everyone will find out." "Are you afraid?" "No," Danny said, and he meant it. "Fear is just another enemy. My grandfather taught me to defeat that one a long time ago." Myra reached out and touched his hand. Her blue fingers were cool against his skin. "I will be watching tomorrow. I will be cheering for you." "Thank you," Danny said. "It is nice to have one friend in this place." They sat together in silence as the 2 moons of 7 rose in the sky outside the windows. Tomorrow would change everything. Tomorrow would show the galaxy what humanity could do. Tomorrow, Danny Carter would fight. And for the first time in weeks, he was excited. The combat arena was the largest building at the Academy. It could hold 50,000 spectators, and on this day, every seat was filled. Aliens from dozens of worlds had come to watch the ranking ceremony. News drones floated above the crowd, broadcasting the event to billions of viewers across the galaxy. The ambassador sat in a special viewing box, dressed in ceremonial armor, ready to watch or bring glory to their species. But everyone was really there for one reason. They wanted to see the human die. The morning matches went quickly. Students fought for yellow belts and blue belts. Some won, some lost. The crowd cheered politely but without real excitement. They were waiting for the main event. They were waiting for the black belt trial. Finally, the announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "The next match is for the rank of black belt. First challenger, representing the Empire, standing at 8 feet 4 inches tall and weighing over 600 pounds, the undefeated warrior of the Academy, Or." The crowd exploded with cheers. Or walked through the main gate of the arena with his arms raised in triumph. His gray skin seemed to glow under the bright lights. His tusks had been polished until they shone like ivory. His ceremonial armor covered his chest and shoulders, decorated with symbols of victory. He roared at the crowd, and 50,000 voices roared back. Or walked to the center of the fighting floor and waited. His massive chest heaved with each breath. His fists clenched and unclenched. He was ready to fight. He was ready to kill. The announcer continued. Second challenger, representing Earth of the Sol system, standing at 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighing 160 pounds, the first human to compete in the black belt trial, Danny Carter. The cheers turned to laughter. Danny walked through the gate wearing simple training clothes. No armor, no decoration, Just a plain gray shirt and loose pants and bare feet on the cold stone floor. He looked tiny compared to Orr. He looked like a child standing next to a monster. Someone in the crowd threw a piece of food at him. It missed, but more objects followed. Trash and debris rained down on the arena floor. The crowd booed and laughed and shouted insults. Danny ignored all of it. He walked calmly to his position across from Orr. Instructor Eth stepped forward. He was serving as the referee for this match. His face was serious as he looked at Danny one last time. "You can still withdraw," he said quietly. "There is no shame in admitting you are not ready." Danny looked up at the massive instructor. "Begin the match." Eth stared at him for a moment. Then he stepped back and raised one of his forearms. "Fighters ready." Or dropped into a fighting stance. His feet dug into the stone floor, cracking it with his weight. His fists came up, each one bigger than Danny's head. "I am going to enjoy this, human," he growled. "I am going to break every bone in your body, slowly." Danny said nothing. He stood in a relaxed position, his hands at his sides, his weight balanced on both feet. He looked almost bored. The arena fell silent. 50,000 spectators held their breath. Billions of viewers across the galaxy leaned closer to their screens. News drones zoomed in on the two fighters. Eth's arm dropped. "Begin." A chime sounded to start the match. Or charged. His legs pushed against the ground with enough force to crack stone. His body shot forward like a missile. His right fist pulled back, gathering power for a strike that could punch through the hull of a starship. He roared as he attacked, a sound that shook the walls of the arena. In that moment, everything seemed to slow down. Danny watched the massive rushing toward him. He saw every detail with perfect clarity. The angle of Orr's arm, the position of his feet, the slight tilt of his body as he committed everything to this one devastating punch. Danny had seen fight many times over the past 3 weeks. He knew exactly what Orr would do, and he knew exactly how to stop it. The first second passed. Danny shifted his weight slightly to the left. Orr's fist rocketed past his head, missing by less than an inch. The wind from the punch moved Danny's hair. The second passed. Danny's left palm struck the inside of Orr's extended elbow. It was not a hard strike. It was just a tap. But it was in exactly the right spot at exactly the right angle. The second passed. The sound that came from Orr's arm was horrible, a wet cracking noise that echoed across the silent arena. This elbow bent backward, breaking in a way that should not have been possible, or screamed in shock and pain. The 4th, 5th, and 6th seconds passed. Danny moved like water flowing around a rock, or swung wildly with his remaining good arm, but Danny was never where the strikes landed. He ducked under one punch. He stepped around another. He moved with no wasted motion, no panic, no hurry. The 7th second passed. Danny's foot swept Orr's ankle. It was a simple move, one that human children learned in their first martial arts class, but it worked on every species with legs. The 8th second passed. The massive began to fall. His balance was gone. His broken arm could not catch him. Gravity pulled his 600 pounds toward the ground. The 9th and 10th seconds passed. Danny's hands moved in a blur. They struck points on Orr's body that no one in the audience could see. 7 precise hits to 7 specific nerve clusters. Human doctors had mapped these points on every known species. They had shared this information freely during first contact, thinking it would help with medical treatment. They never mentioned that the same information could be used to paralyze. The 11th second passed, or hit the ground. His body was frozen. He could not move his arms or legs. He could only blink his eyes and breathe. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The 12th second passed. Danny stood over his fallen opponent. He raised one finger and pointed it at the base of Orr's throat. In that spot, hidden beneath this natural armor, was a gap in the bone. A finger strike there would crush the windpipe and stop the heart. The 13th second passed. The arena's combat computer recognized the killing blow position. A loud chime sounded 3 times, signaling the end of the match. Silence. 50,000 spectators sat frozen in their seats. Billions of viewers across the galaxy stared at their screens in disbelief. The ambassador's mouth hung open. Instructor Eth stood motionless, his 4 arms limp at his sides. The combat computer's voice broke the silence. Match concluded. Time elapsed, 13.2 seconds. Winner by killing blow position, Danny Carter, human. Danny stepped back for more. He turned to face Instructor Eth and bowed deeply. Then he turned to the silent crowd and bowed again. Finally, he looked down at Or, who stared up at him with eyes full of fear and confusion and something that might have been shame. "You will recover fully in about an hour," Danny said quietly. "I was careful not to cause permanent damage." Then he walked back to his starting position and waited for what came next. The arena remained silent. No one knew what to say. No one knew what to think. The galaxy had just learned what a human could do. The silence lasted for almost a full minute. Danny stood alone in the center of the arena, waiting. The crowd did not know how to react. They had come to watch a human die. They had come to laugh and cheer as the weak creature from the small blue planet was crushed by a warrior. Instead, they had watched something impossible. They had watched 13 seconds that would change the galaxy forever. Instructor Eth was the first to move. He walked slowly toward Danny, his 4 arms hanging at his sides, his yellow eyes wide with shock. When he reached Danny, he stopped and stared down at the human for a long moment. "How?" Eth asked. His voice was barely a whisper. "How did you do that?" Danny looked up at his instructor. "Humans learned to fight before we learned to make fire. For 200,000 years we were the weakest creatures on our planet. Everything could kill us, so we learned to kill everything first." He paused. "Not with strength, with precision, with patience, with techniques refined over countless generations." Eth shook his head slowly. "But the speed, the accuracy, the knowledge of where to strike. I have trained warriors for 40 years. I have never seen anything like that." "On Earth we had no claws," Danny said. "No venom, no armor, no extra limbs, so we developed something else. We learned to use an opponent's strength against them. We learned to find weakness in every defense. We learned to strike with perfect efficiency." He looked around at the silent crowd. "Every species here evolved weapons. Humans evolved something different. We became the weapons." Eth was quiet for a moment. Then he did something no one expected. He reached down and took Danny's hand. He raised it above Danny's head for the crowd to see. "The winner of the Black Belt trial," he announced, his voice echoing across the arena. "Danny Carter, human." The silence continued for another heartbeat. Then, somewhere in the crowd, a single pair of hands began to clap. More joined. Then more. Within seconds, the entire arena was filled with applause. It was not the wild cheering that had greeted Or. It was something different, something quieter but deeper. It was the sound of respect being given to someone who had earned it. Medical staff rushed onto the arena floor to help Or. The paralysis was already starting to fade. He could move his fingers and toes again. He would be fully recovered within the hour, just as Danny had promised. But the look in his eyes was not one of anger or hatred. It was the look of someone whose entire world had just been turned upside down. The black belt ceremony happened later that day. Danny stood in the main hall of the academy as Instructor Eth tied the black cloth around his waist. The entire student body was present. So were the instructors. So were important guests from around the galaxy. The ambassador had left without speaking to anyone. He had a lot to think about. After the ceremony, students approached Danny one by one. The same students who had mocked him and ignored him and treated him like trash. Now they looked at him with different eyes. Some apologized. Others simply bowed and walked away. A few asked if he would teach them. Myra found him in the meditation garden that evening. She sat beside him on the same bench where they had first spoken. Her silver eyes were bright with happiness. "You did it," she said. "You really did it." Danny smiled. "I told you I could. Everyone is talking about you, not just at the Academy, across the entire galaxy. The video of your fight has been watched billions of times already." She shook her head in amazement. "They are calling you the greatest martial artist in known space." Danny looked uncomfortable with this praise. "I just did what my grandfather taught me, nothing more." "Will you stay at the Academy?" "For a while," Danny said, "but not as a student. Instructor Ev asked me to teach. He wants me to share human fighting techniques with the other students." Myra tilted her head. "Will you share them, I mean? They were your advantage, your secret weapon." Danny thought about this question. He looked up at the alien stars that were slowly becoming familiar to him. He thought about his grandfather, who had spent his life teaching others to defend themselves. He thought about all the species in the galaxy who were not designed for combat. Species like the species that were mocked and bullied just like he had been. "My grandfather did not teach me to fight so I could defeat enemies," Danny said finally. "He taught me so I could protect people who could not protect themselves. He believed that everyone deserves the ability to defend their own life." He looked at Myra. "The galaxy is a dangerous place. If human martial arts can help others stay safe, then I think my grandfather would want me to share them." "Even with your enemies?" Danny shook his head. "Or was never my enemy. He was afraid that his strength was all he had, afraid that without it he was nothing." He smiled slightly. "True warriors do not make enemies, they make students." Myra reached out and took his hand. "Then I would like to be your first student." "I would be honored," Danny said. In the months that followed, Danny's classes grew from 1 student to 10 to 50 to hundreds. Aliens from all over the galaxy came to learn the fighting techniques of Earth. They learned throws and locks and pressure points. They learned to use their enemy's power against them. They learned that size and strength were not the only paths to victory. Danny gave names to what he taught, names that the aliens struggled to pronounce. Aikido, Maga, Judo. Each name represented centuries of human innovation. Each technique had been tested in countless fights over countless generations. Within a decade, Earth martial arts had spread to 17 star systems. Human instructors became the most sought-after combat teachers in known space. Academies on dozens of worlds added human fighting styles to their programs. The techniques that had helped a weak species survive on a dangerous planet were now helping others survive in a dangerous galaxy. And at every academy, in every school, on every planet where human martial arts were taught, the story was told. The story of the human teenager who walked into a room full of warriors and let them laugh. The story of the boy who watched and waited and learned. The story of the 13 seconds that changed everything. Danny Carter never did like being underestimated, but he never stopped being kind to those who had underestimated him. When or asked to become his student, Danny welcomed him without hesitation. When former bullies sought his teaching, he treated them with patience and respect. That, his grandfather would have said, was the true mark of a warrior. Years later, when Danny was old and gray and surrounded by students from 100 different worlds, someone asked him what his greatest achievement was. They expected him to talk about his famous fight. They expected him to mention his black belt or his role in spreading human martial arts across the galaxy. Instead, Danny just smiled and said, "I kept my grandfather's promise. I helped people learn to protect themselves. Everything else was just a bonus." Outside the window, stars from a dozen different systems sparkled in the darkness. Somewhere out there, in training halls and academies across the galaxy, the next generation of warriors was learning the techniques that humanity had developed over 200,000 years of survival. And every one of them knew the name Danny Carter. The end.